Art makes my heart beat. But I'm here today to tell you, sadly, that art is dead. Why you need to care and what we all can do to fix it. What I notice almost every day is the alienated masses. There's those people that think that that fine art stuff is for the too smart people, for those stuck-up people. I kind of get what they're saying. But my heart goes out to them because I think art is a place that shows us our shared humanity. But I have good news. I think I know where this, I think my mic's a little funny, sorry about that. I think I know where this bad attitude comes from that we're so afraid of, a lot of us. I think it comes from what I will call the indelible exclusivity of the art world, which is indelible meaning unmoving and exclusivity meaning only for the few or the select. And that shouldn't be, right? Because art should be for everybody. So let's change that. I have a twofold proposition for you. I think we need to start with disability and inserting it into the conversation in the arts among people in the arts. And secondly, I think we need to look at the exclusion of peoples with disabilities in the arts, like artists, writers, performers, and arts administrators via what I will call is mostly unintentional and poor design. I think that this is a problem that all we have to do is come together and lift. If there's one thing I know in my life, that there is no burden too heavy if everybody comes together and does the lifting. But why is it that I think disability is the key? Well, it's because disability is like the rug underneath the feet of all kinds of oppression. If we just pulled that out, we could solve it all. Take, for example, the sexist belief that all women are weaker than men, therefore they're inferior to men. I know it's totally not true, right? But what if instead of focusing on the validity of that statement, we focused on the ableism that was underneath it? And that is to say that ableism, which is disability discrimination, is where because of an individual's mental or physical characteristics, they are oppressed. They are seen as lesser than. And they don't get to be full members of the us group. And that's really unfortunate. Well, let's go back to the snootiness problem. Well, when I say that I am not smart enough to take part in an art experience, I'm somehow making a judgment that I'm intellectually inferior to participate. And I ask, why should it be that way? This, and like sexism and color and race discrimination, all have disability underneath them. I think you need to know a couple things about me first. I think you need to know that, one, I've had quite a few disabilities throughout my lifetime. I'm legally blind, low vision. I like to say that I'm certainly not sighted, or when I'm in a particularly funny mood, I like to say I'm Miss Blindy Pants. And that I hid my disability all the way through my second year of college, from birth. It's kind of amazing, huh? And this was because I didn't want to spend my life talking about my disability. I wanted to focus on the kind of art that I wanted to make. And in art school, I don't want to pay thousands of dollars to talk to my colleagues about it either. So, but I should stop here and say, I'm no hero for making it public, and that disability can be a very private matter. It's an individual's choice if they have a concealable disability, and I totally support people's privacy. I'm just saying this is part of my story. And secondly, I in no way see my vision impairment as a detrimental thing in my life. It's actually a part of me. Also, I should pause here and say that when we're working on disability in the arts, we're actually working on it for the arts, but for all of us, disability is such a common part of being human. It's ridiculous. Most of you in your life at one point will have a disability, temporary, long-term. Well, my story begins innocently enough in 2006, when I had my first art show where I used my blindness in my art. This is an image of that installation with sculptures covered in Braille. And I was so excited. A man walked up to me after reading the artist statement, and he wanted to talk to me about my art. And he said to me, "Who's the artist?" And in my artist statement, it had mentioned that I was blind. And I say, "I'm the artist." To which he responds, waving his hand in front of my face in the most undignified way, "Gee, you don't look blind." It was humiliating. It would be easy, and it's tempting to say that that was an isolated incident, but I have to tell you that my honesty and my disability, they are questioned nearly every day. So now you get to see my acting skills. Here's some of my favorites, sarcastically. "But you're so beautiful. How could you be blind?" Or, like, how could you paint that if you're like low vision or whatever, sight impaired? Like lifting heavy load on one's own, easy is not the truth. Nope. We can fix this though together. All we have to do is lift. So after school, I went to work for an organization that fostered disability art, disability culture, and disability community. I knew nothing about this, by the way. I was fine art educated. I had nothing to do with this kind of folk art stuff. It was all new. But I saw what real access could look like there for people with disabilities in the arts. And I saw kinds of art that we never talked about in art school. I mean, I seriously started asking questions from the moment that that guy said that horrible thing to me. And it was the best thing that happened to me in that way, because when I finally got to that job, I went, where are all the artists with disabilities? They didn't seem to be at that art school. Or in all the galleries that I seem to be going to. It's not in any sort of number that would represent how common it is. And my teachers, they always used euphemisms for disability, and they rarely talked about minorities in the arts. Oh. The moment of compassion came when I realized maybe we just did not know that we needed to have a conversation about it, that it could be a fruitful area of study. So I decided that I would ask the question, how do we talk about disability in the arts in a good way? Or how should we? So this organization and the experience of being alienated in my own gallery, they all culminated into a project that is 4 years and ongoing. And it's called A Somewhat Secret Place, Disability in Art. I learned a lot doing this project. I learned that, I should explain what it is, huh? Okay, so I first had an exhibition with 21 artists and writers and performers with and without disabilities. And then I wrote a manuscript that was kind of like a roadmap of how we could talk about disability in the arts. And this was primarily, for people that are in the arts, but too, I really think that disability can be like a channel to get everybody interested. Because at one point, it all touches their lives, right? So I think I'm going to back up to my slideshow. I'm sorry. I think that there's a couple things that make a really good artist, and I just want to quickly kind of go over them so you can understand where I'm coming from here. One, I think you need to work all the time. I work all the time, and when not thinking about when not working, I'm thinking or I'm talking about it. And two, I'm sort of, okay, I follow every flight of fancy, even if I don't know why. So this is really embarrassing, but I'm going to give you one example of my artwork and this embarrassing habit. I've been obsessively drawing and painting cat beards and viral images of cats from the internet. I don't know why, I can't stop myself, but like the man in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I know that this is important. And that the reason will come. I haven't quite got to the point where I'm sculpting mashed potato sculptures of Grumpy Kitty, but I'm telling you, it could happen. So, and thirdly, you have to bring yourself to your art. Really, we all have to bring ourselves to art. Disability is part of who we are as one culture. And that is why now I'm going the wrong way, sorry. Slides, technology, it's a good thing. That's why I did a somewhat secret place disability in art, because I thought we needed to bring ourselves to our art, all of ourselves. So I've been sort of throwing around terminology for you guys, and I think maybe we should kind of clear some things up. And also I can tell you some things that I learned from my project. So disability in a nutshell, defined by, say, the US government by law, is any sort of condition acquired, like you get one, or from birth, that, in a nutshell, interferes with life functions. So that's like sleeping, eating, working, so on and so forth. But for art, I think it could mean something more. One of the fruits of my research has been thinking about the ways that we respond to images of disability, how we physically or mentally respond. And I found out something really interesting. In art, we respond to conditions that we see that could be considered super abilities the same way. Take, for example, a baby born with a genetic condition that causes super strength but no side effects. So we don't consider it maybe disabling, but we look at that baby the same way we might look at disfigurement. So interesting to me. Well, that means that art can't go and pluck a definition from another discipline. We have to make our own words to make this conversation happen. So, what about fine art? How do we define that? Well, let's just say that it's that stuff, that stuff that's in those galleries and that library and that museum and that auction house and all that stuff together, because it contains the subjectivity of each individual artist or writer that touched it. In a way, it's like a snapshot in history of all of us. Like this, collectively, it says something. So it is that it should include disability. We have to put disability in the conversation, but I gotta tell you, we don't often name it. Not in my experience. But that's only one half of the problem, right? We have to work on inclusion, because how can you have a conversation without people with disabilities, right? Not very fair. So here's the thing. I don't want to be an ostrich with my head in the sand thinking that the art world is somehow a super progressive place, which I have to tell you is something that I believed for years. I call it the complacent and erroneous belief that art is somehow better than the rest of culture. So let's not stick our heads in the sand. Let's pull our heads out of the sand, have a conversation, and have it with people with disabilities. But first, we have to work on the access problem, right? So let's take an example that we could all easily work on just by being irritated by it and maybe telling somebody about it. Like telling you guys, right? Well, I don't know if you guys know what the U.S. Pavilion is at the Venice Biennale. The Venice Biennale is a super old art festival in Venice, Italy. And this is our pavilion. We show our art here every 2 years when they have the festival. And I just want to point out, now I can't see it, so I'm going to describe it so you guys can understand. There's a garden, a park, like the Portland Park blocks. And to get into the courtyard of the pavilion, which is the only real entrance, you have to take a step up. So the building that is supposed to show the work of my country, the United States, is inaccessible to my fellow people with disabilities. Does this make sense to you guys? You can nod yes and say yeah, that's cool. And what really bothers me is that the United States government actually sort of sanctions this, because there are 2 government agencies that participate with the Guggenheim Foundation to run this pavilion, which just astonishes me. And 2, and this is like so ironic to me, this has not changed since 1930, but our laws have changed a lot about accessibility, which means that, in a way, our ethics have changed a lot about accessibility and disability. But sadly, we have our architecture Venice Biennale here too, where we're supposed to show that we're super smart when it comes to architecture. But we have a building where most people can't get into it, that use wheelchairs or can't take a step up. That doesn't seem right to me. So, in closing, we need to start having a conversation about disability in the arts, because it can sort of knock out also our other problems with race discrimination and sexism, because it's the underlying issue. The thing that concerns me the most is that we're not getting at the root of the problem. And that's what I'd like you guys to take away from today, is that if we all lift together and we succeed, we get at the root of this problem, take our heads out of the sand, art will live, because art lives through diversity. Thank you.